It began on a quiet summer night. No alarms, no sirens, no warning. In a college town where nights usually ended in laughter and lights, this one didn't. She was last seen just after 4:30 a.m. barefoot, stepping into the street alone. Her name was Lauren Spierer, a student, a daughter, a friend, 20 years old. One moment, she was here, alive, moving, breathing, and the next, she was not. There was no scream, no witness, no struggle heard through a wall, no crash, no trace. She was simply gone. Gone without her shoes. Gone without her phone. Gone without her keys, wallet, or any way to reach out. The streets she walked were familiar. Her apartment was just a few blocks away. But she never arrived. She never called. She never came home. And no one, not one person, has been able to explain why. She was surrounded by people that night. People she knew. People who saw her. People who walked with her, laughed with her, stood beside her in doorways and inside apartments and on the streets of Bloomington. And then, just like that, she was no longer there. But what followed was not a frantic search. There were no friends combing the sidewalks in panic. No early morning phone calls to police. No loud questions shouted down empty hallways. Hours passed, then more, and when the clock hit daylight, the silence had already grown heavy. Friends went back to bed. Others carried on with their day. Some stayed quiet. Some still do. When Lauren's disappearance was finally reported, it wasn't by a friend. It wasn't by someone who was with her that night. It was her boyfriend, and he hadn't seen her in hours. Police arrived, but there was no crime scene, no broken window, no trail. What they were left with was a name and a vanishing that had already grown cold. In the hours after Lauren went missing, phones were wiped. Stories began to shift. Timelines didn't align. Statements were vague. People lawyered up. A web of confusion wrapped itself around what should have been simple. Who she was with, where she went, what happened. But instead of clarity, there were holes. People who claimed they couldn't remember. People who wouldn't talk. And just like Lauren's footprints, whatever answers might have existed were gone by morning. And still, to this day, no arrests, no charges, no one named as a suspect. 13 years, no confession, just silence. And a single haunting question. How does a young woman walk out of a college apartment into a neighborhood surrounded by people and disappear without a sound? And if it wasn't an accident, if she didn't just vanish, then where is she? Who was the last to see her? And what exactly was being protected in the hours when no one spoke? Before the police reports, before the maps, before the interviews and press conferences and timelines. There was just Lauren. She wasn't a headline. She wasn't a case file. She wasn't photographed pinned to a flyer fluttering on a telephone pole. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman navigating the uncertain, electric space between adolescence and adulthood. Lauren Spierer was born on January 17, 1991. She grew up in Scarsdale, New York, just north of New York City. Her parents, Robert and Charlene, raised her in a quiet, comfortable neighborhood with tree-lined streets and a good school system. She loved drawing, music, her friends. She liked snow days and concerts and talking late into the night. She had a soft voice, a playful spirit, a gentle presence. But she also carried something else, something private. Lauren was diagnosed with long QT syndrome, a heart rhythm condition that can cause sudden fainting, seizures, even cardiac arrest. It was a quiet diagnosis, one that didn't define her, but it was there. She took medication. She monitored her health. She was careful, but she didn't let it dictate who she was. To those who knew her, Lauren wasn't fragile. She was full of life. In 2009, she left Scarsdale and moved to Bloomington, Indiana, to attend Indiana University, a new place, a new beginning. She studied textiles and merchandising. She immersed herself in campus life. She joined the fashion community, went to parties, made new friends. People described her as magnetic, someone who lit up the room without trying to. She wasn't loud, but she was noticed. She had a warmth people gravitated toward. She was the kind of person who remembered your birthday, even if you've forgotten hers. Lauren kept in close touch with her family, especially her mother. They texted constantly, called often. Her parents worried, like all parents do, but she always answered, always checked in. On June 1st, 2011, Lauren spoke with her mother. It was a normal conversation. Nothing stood out. Her voice was steady. Her words were casual. There was no sign that anything was wrong. She said she had plans that night. A few friends. Maybe a drink or two. Nothing out of the ordinary. The summer semester was light. The weather was warm. There was no reason not to go out. That evening, Lauren met up with some friends. It started at her apartment, then moved to a friend's house in Smallwood Plaza. They talked, drank, listened to music, laughed. Texts came and went. Plans changed. More people joined. By 1:30 in the morning, Lauren was at Kilroy Sports Bar, one of the most popular spots near campus. She walked in with friends, ordered drinks, talked to people she knew. But at some point, something shifted. She became separated from her group. She left behind her shoes, her phone, her ID. She walked out barefoot. The sidewalk outside the bar was still damp from the sprinklers. The air was thick. Security cameras captured a glimpse of her walking away. It was 2:30 a.m. From there, she headed toward an apartment with a few people she knew, not close friends, but acquaintances. She went inside, sat for a while, spoke quietly. There were reports of her stumbling, seeming disoriented, possibly intoxicated, but none of the stories aligned. The next hour passed in fragments. She moved from one apartment to another. One person said she wanted to go home. Another said she refused help. Someone offered to walk her back. Someone else said she insisted she'd be fine, but the details blurred. And soon, no one seemed sure of anything. At 4:15 a.m., a text was sent. At 4:26, she was seen standing near a doorway. And at 4:30 a.m., Lauren Spierer was seen walking away. No shoes, no phone, no purse. Her apartment was only a few blocks away, but she never made it, and she was never seen again. No screams, no struggle, no witnesses, just silence, just questions, and the start of a mystery that, to this day, has never been solved. Bloomington, Indiana, a town made for students. Brick walkways, local diners, coffee shops with paper menus taped to the wall. In the fall, the air smells like bonfires and football. In the spring, laughter drifts from porches where music plays softly into the night. It's the kind of place where you recognize faces, even if you don't know their names. A place that feels small enough to be safe, where everything is within walking distance, where the bars are just a few steps from home, where most people believe that bad things only happen somewhere else. On paper, it's peaceful, but beneath the surface, like any college town, there's another rhythm. A louder one, a faster one. Parties that start late and end later. Red Solo cups, strobe lights, loud music echoing from second-floor balconies, drunken arguments, hookups, fights, lies, secrets. It's all part of the unspoken code of student life. What happens after midnight doesn't always make it to the morning. For many, it's just noise. For Lauren Spierer, it was the last world she was seen in. The night she vanished, Lauren's path crossed with several people. All of them played a role in the timeline. All of them were there, some closer to her than others. None of them have ever been charged. All of them were questioned. First, there was Jesse Wolfe, Lauren's boyfriend. He wasn't with her that night. He said he was at home, texting her throughout the evening. He claimed he didn't hear from her after around 2:30 a.m. He was the one who called police to report her missing. He was calm, polite, cooperative, but over time, he distanced himself from the case. Publicly, he didn't speak much. Privately, he stopped returning some calls. He retained a lawyer early on. Police never labeled him a suspect, but questions remained. Then there was Jay was the last person to report seeing Lauren alive. He told police she appeared intoxicated. He said she wanted to go home. He said she refused help. He watched her walk away at 4:30 in the morning. And then he said She was gone. Jay spoke to police multiple times. His story changed slightly in each retelling. Not drastically, but enough to raise eyebrows. He, too, retained an attorney. And eventually, he, too, stopped speaking to media. Corey Rossman was another name that came up early. Corey was with Lauren earlier that night. They were seen on surveillance footage, walking arm in arm. Corey claimed he had been punched, that he had no memory of that night. He said he blacked out. Couldn't remember walking with her. Couldn't remember what was said. Couldn't remember where they went. His friends backed him up, but police weren't sure. Was it real memory loss? Or a carefully constructed distance? Then there was Michael Beth. He was a friend of Corey's. He was in one of the apartments Lauren stopped at during the early morning hours. He wasn't the last to see her, but he, like the others, was among the last known people to interact with her before she disappeared. Michael also lawyered up, also declined future interviews, and, like everyone else, denied any knowledge of what happened after 4:30 a.m. The stretch of road where Lauren disappeared is quiet at night. Trees line the sidewalk. Streetlights flicker. Shadows move between buildings with no name. It's the kind of street you walk 100 times and never think twice. The kind of street where nothing happens until it does. Lauren's apartment was just a few blocks away. She knew the route. But on June 3rd, 2011, she didn't make it home. And for investigators, that narrow corridor became a black hole. Every camera angle was reviewed. Every trash bin searched. Every neighbor questioned. But there were no signs. No shoes. No purse. No phone. Nothing. From that final intersection, she disappeared completely. It was as if the earth had opened and closed again before anyone could see. The night had grown quiet. The city had gone still. Most students were already home, asleep or nearly there. But Lauren Spierer was still moving. At 12:30 a.m., she was inside Kilroy's sports bar. She drank. She danced. She smiled. She laughed with friends in the flashing dark. Then, for reasons no one has fully explained, she left suddenly. No shoes, no phone, no purse, just her, stepping barefoot onto North Walnut Street at 2:30 in the morning. The pavement still held the heat from earlier in the day. Streetlights buzzed overhead. A few stragglers passed, but none seemed to notice. Surveillance footage captured her next steps. She was with Corey Rossman, another IU student. Their arms were around each other. They walked towards Smallwood Plaza, a high-end student apartment complex 2 blocks north. At 2:48 a.m., they entered the building. They were buzzed in. They took the elevator. Lauren was unsteady. Inside the hallway, something happened. Corey Rossman encountered another student. Words were exchanged. Something about Lauren's condition. Someone thought he was taking advantage of her. A punch was thrown. Corey was hit in the face. He would later say he remembered nothing after that. The next 60 minutes are where the timeline begins to break. Between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., Lauren moved between 3 apartments. And each of the men she interacted with that night, Corey Rossman, Michael Beth, and Jay Rosenbaum, offered different versions of what happened. Some said she wanted to stay. Others said she asked to leave. Some said she was sober enough to walk home. Others describe her as unable to stand without help. No version aligned fully with another. At 3:15 a.m., Lauren was inside Michael Beth's apartment, where she had followed Rossman after the altercation. But Rossman claimed to be blacked out. Beth would later say Lauren didn't stay long. He said she didn't want to sleep there. She was tired, but she insisted on leaving. From there, she made her way to Jay Rosenbaum's apartment, another student who lived in the same complex. He said she looked bruised. She told him she had fallen. He gave her water, talked with her. He claimed she refused help. According to Jay, she said she would walk home. He said he watched her from his balcony, watched her walk to the corner of 11th Street and College Avenue. And then she disappeared from view. That was 4:30 a.m. From there, no one knows what happened. There's no verified sighting. No new surveillance footage. No passing driver reported seeing her. No security camera picked her up walking the few blocks home. No one ever found her white tank top, or her black leggings, or her necklace. Not even a single strand of her hair. Nothing. Her apartment was just minutes away, less than a 10-minute walk. A walk she had made before, but she never made it home. And no one ever saw her again. When investigators reviewed the timeline, they hit wall after wall. Corey Rossman said he couldn't remember. His memory, he claimed, was erased after punch. Police questioned that. Some said he was coherent when seen later. But without his phone, Lauren's communications were gone. No texts, no calls, no GPS. And the others? Jason Rosenbaum, Jay Rosenbaum, Michael Beth, they all gave statements. They all offered bits and pieces. But none could, or would, say what happened after she walked out that door. Every camera near 11th Street was checked. None showed her. Every trash bin, alleyway, rooftop, basement, searched. No trace. No sign of a struggle. No witnesses. Just silence. Just questions. Just a girl who walked into the early hours of the morning and was never seen again. But after that moment, Lauren simply vanished. By the morning of June 3rd, 2011, the silence had become unbearable. Lauren Spierer hadn't come home. Her roommates couldn't reach her. Her boyfriend wasn't answering. Her phone was still off. By 11:30 a.m., panic was beginning to settle in. Jesse Wolf, her boyfriend, finally called the police. She wasn't answering his texts. She hadn't shown up at home. No one had heard from her since the early hours. Police arrived at her apartment shortly after call. Inside, her belongings, her makeup, her books, her bed still made. No sign of a struggle. No sign of Lauren. Just quiet. Within hours, word spread across campus. A missing student, blonde, 20 years old, last seen barefoot, walking alone near College Avenue. And then nothing. Flyers went up that same day. Her face, captured in happier moments, posted across lampposts, bus stops, coffee shop windows. Have you seen Lauren? Students gathered in circles. Parents called their children. Professors interrupted class to talk about it. That night, a candlelight vigil was held on campus. Dozens of students stood quietly in a courtyard, holding photos, flickering flames reflecting in their eyes. And behind them, fear. The Bloomington Police Department launched a full-scale investigation. Officers fanned out in every direction, street by street, door by door. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Rivers were searched. Trash bins, alleyways, and construction sites were scoured. Volunteers combed woods and railways, drainage ditches, ravines, retention ponds. In total, over 3,000 tips would flood into the station in the first few weeks. But none led to Lauren. The FBI joined the case within 48 hours. National coverage followed. ABC, NBC, CNN, interviews with her parents aired coast to coast. People who had never heard her name before now knew her face. And yet, not one confirmed sighting. As police tried to map out her final hours, inconsistencies began to pile up. Jesse Wolf, the boyfriend who reported her missing, distanced himself early. He gave a statement, but refused interviews. He said he had nothing to add. Friends of Lauren said the relationship had been strained. He was polite, reserved, but detached. He never joined the family in press conferences. And eventually, he stopped answering media calls altogether. Corey Rossman, the last person to be seen with Lauren on surveillance footage, told police he had been punched. He claimed he blacked out. Said he remembered nothing after entering Smallwood Plaza. His story never changed. But that was the problem. It never changed. Not once. Not a single detail added or amended. When asked questions, he simply said he didn't know. When pressed further, his attorney answered instead. And eventually, Corey stopped speaking publicly altogether. Jay Rosenbaum, the last person claimed he saw Lauren, offered another puzzle. In his initial statement, he said he saw her leave from his balcony, said she refused help, said she was insistent on walking home alone. But over time, minor details shifted. Whether he actually watched her leave, whether she exited through the front or side, whether she walked east or simply stood still, these weren't major contradictions, but they were enough to erode confidence. Jay retained legal counsel early, and like the others, he withdrew from public view. Police confirmed that none of the young men were ever labeled suspects. No charges, no arrests, but over time, investigators expressed frustration, not just at the lack of evidence, but at the silence. Friends who stopped returning calls, lawyers who ended conversations, students who once posted flyers now deleted their comments. Nobody said anything incriminating, but few were willing to say anything at all. As the days turned into weeks, public interest surged. Reddit threads exploded with theories. Online sleuths dissected every surveillance frame. Maps were drawn, timelines reconstructed, behaviors questioned. Commoners asked why Corey never returned to search, why Jesse avoided the spotlight, why Jay gave differing statements, why none of them had a clear answer for what happened between 4:30 a.m. and sunrise. Some believed she overdosed, and her friends panicked. Others suggested she was abducted by a stranger on her walk home. A few accused those closest to her of knowing more than they admitted, but with no body, no physical evidence, no DNA, there was nothing to prove or disprove any version. Only silence, only distance, only a family still searching, and a town still haunted. Time passed. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. The flyers faded. The vigils quieted. The news cameras left town. But the questions remained. In the absence of answers, theories began to rise. Quietly at first, then everywhere. On forums, in family conversations, in whispered rumors at the university. Everyone had something to say, but no one had proof. One of the earliest theories, one that continues to haunt the investigation, is the overdose theory. Did Lauren take something that night? A pill? A mix? A bad combination? Did her body react unexpectedly? And if so, did someone panic? It's a scenario investigators took seriously. According to sources, Lauren had a heart condition, long QT syndrome, a rare electrical disorder that made her vulnerable. A stimulant, alcohol, a strong emotional event. Any of those could have triggered an episode. And that night, there were all three. Reports suggest Lauren drank heavily. Others speculate she may have taken something, willingly or not. A small white capsule. Something passed in a drink. Something taken without a second thought. But the most disturbing part of the overdose theory isn't that she may have died. It's what might have happened after. The suggestion that those around her, friends, acquaintances, may have panicked, may have feared police involvement, feared expulsion, feared reputational damage, and chose to dispose of her body rather than call for help. It's never been proven, but it's never been ruled out. The FBI quietly pursued that theory. According to unnamed sources, it was their leading line of inquiry for years. A theory that didn't hinge on strangers, but on people Lauren knew, trusted, spent her final hours with. But no charges were ever filed. No body was ever found. And those who could answer never did. Then came another theory, darker, broader, sex trafficking. Could Lauren have been taken, targeted by someone watching from the shadows? Bloomington is located along Interstate 69, a major route stretching through Indiana and connecting to wider trafficking corridors. Some believe her petite size made her a target, that someone followed her, that her vulnerability, walking barefoot alone late at night, left her exposed, and someone took advantage. But there's no surveillance footage, no witness, no scream, no vehicle seen pulling up, no proof, just possibilities. Other theories grew darker still. Fraternity involvement, whispers of a cover-up, hushed conversations in dorm rooms and fraternity houses, stories of a party gone wrong, of alcohol, drugs, pressure, and then silence. The culture of secrecy. Protect the house. Protect the brothers. Deny everything. Say nothing. Police questioned members of multiple Greek organizations. Some answered. some didn't. Rumors surfaced of deleted texts, erased data, alibis crafted in whispers, but no one broke. And again, no evidence emerged. The investigation slowed. Tips still came in. Occasionally, human remains would be discovered in wooded areas near Monroe County. Bones found by hikers. A skull fragment near Martinsville. A shallow grave in Brown County. Each discovery reignited hope and dread. But every time, the same result. Not Lauren. Not this time. Not her. Her parents clung to hope. But even hope began to change. It became less about finding Lauren alive, and more about finding her at all. They pleaded for polygraph results to be made public, but authorities declined. "We cannot comment on ongoing investigations," they said. "We cannot release those results." Years passed. People moved on, but not her family. Not the investigators who still take tips every month. Not the people who believe the truth is still out there. And the rumors never stopped. Some say she's buried somewhere in the forest north of Bloomington. Others believe she never left Smallwood Plaza. That whatever happened, happened there, behind closed doors, in the silence of night, before the world even knew she was gone. Everyone had something to say. A theory, a defense, a second-hand story. But no one told the full truth. For 30 in the morning, Lauren Spierer was last seen on 11th Street, just steps from College Avenue. She walked alone, no shoes, no phone, a few minutes from home. And then, nothing, not a trace, not a sound, not a single piece of verified evidence from that moment forward. What happened between 4:30 a.m. and sunrise? It remains the single most pressing question in a case filled with silence. The last people to see Lauren were known. They spoke to her. They were with her. But no one could or would explain what happened next. Theories exist, and with them possibilities, that she overdosed, that someone panicked, that there was a car waiting, that someone watched her walk into the dark and made a decision that changed everything. But despite thousands of tips, FBI involvement, and the largest search in Bloomington's history, not one version of the truth has been proven. And every theory leaves one thing unspoken. Why did no one come forward? A young woman doesn't simply vanish. Not from a college town. Not with police on every street. Not with the entire country watching. But she did, which leads to one final question. Was there a coordinated cover-up? A quiet decision? A pact among friends? A fear of consequences greater than the weight of truth? Something that kept them silent then, and still keeps them silent now. For Rob and Charlene Spierer, the search has never ended. In the years since Lauren vanished, they have walked the streets of Bloomington countless times. They've retraced her steps, spoken to detectives, pleaded with the public. They've done interviews, hired private investigators, filed legal motions, spoken to the media even when their voices trembled. Every day since June 3rd, 2011 has been a continuation of that first morning. Waiting, hoping, grieving. They don't speak in anger. They speak in loss. They don't speculate. They ask, not for theories, just for truth, a moment of honesty, a name, a location, something, anything, to bring Lauren home, to bury their daughter, to end a story that should have ended that morning with her safe return. But it didn't. In the time since Lauren disappeared, other names have filled the headlines, other cases, other faces, but this one stayed, maybe because it felt too close, too real, too possible. A college girl, a night out, a few blocks home, and then gone. The fear that it could happen to anyone has never fully left. Lauren Spierer was 20 years old. She loved music. She had dreams. She had plans. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone's whole world. And someone out there knows what happened. Someone remembers that morning, the final moment, the truth, even if it's only one small part of it. And they have chosen, for 14 years, to say nothing, maybe out of fear, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of self-preservation. But silence is still a choice. And so the question lingers. What happened to Lauren Spierer? And why, after all this time, has no one told the truth? Over a decade later, the disappearance of Lauren Spierer remains a chilling enigma. No remains have ever been found. No one has ever been charged. And yet her name lives on, in hearts, in headlines, and in the quiet corners of a campus that remembers. Some say justice is just one secret away, one voice, one confession. Until then, Lauren's story remains what it has always been, a mystery, a tragedy, and a cry that still echoes in the night. If this story moved you, if you believe stories like Lauren's deserve to be told, please consider subscribing. Your support helps us uncover the truth, amplify the unheard, and never let these stories fade into silence. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us every day as we search for answers, one case at a time.